Hi friends, and welcome back to my sewing room. This is Stitches and Slapdashery. I'm Nicola and I live in British Columbia, Canada with my family. With rents being what they are these days, they may never leave. It's looking very likely. I'm a bit of a makeaholic and I like to make a lot of things, and this vlog has been incredibly inspirational at getting me moving on, making even more things. Some nights when I finished work, I just want to lie on the couch and zombie-fy myself. But there have been nights when I have come down here to my sewing room and I have enjoyed doing a bit of sewing or a bit of knitting, which has actually been a really good thing because it's relaxing and I enjoy it, and it makes the end of my day much more enjoyable. So even though it's been 35 degrees today, I am wearing a flannel shirt. I made this a couple of years ago, I think, and it was probably one of the most complicated things I ever made. I used this pattern, McCall 6613. And I was intending to make it for display at work, and I knew I had to do a really good job because I knew all these customers and staff were going to be inspecting it closely for any errors. I think this might be discontinued now, unfortunately. It's a pretty good pattern, and I managed to, I think, do a surprisingly good job considering it was my first time making something like this, except for the tailored shirt that I had to make as part of my O-level course in my sewing class way back when I was 16 and in secondary school back in Britain. So this is a tailored shirt. It's pretty much what you'd expect of a plaid shirt. It has the placket at the back, which I did on the diagonal. That saved me a bit of matching. I didn't put any pockets on the front, but I managed to match my pattern so well, and I'm proud of it. And of course I love the colour. You can't seem to buy shirts this colour in the stores. I've got a couple of other plaid shirts from some store or other, I can't remember where, and I've never seen anything with turquoise available commercially. Of course, turquoise being my favourite colour, I am delighted with it. Moving on from that, I did have some fun mail this week. I bought myself some quilting rulers. Now I already have, I think, an old Fiskars ruler from way back when I started quilting about 25 years ago, and also have some newer Omnigrid rulers, but these are called Crafter's Dream. Going to be somewhat hard to show these to you because they are very new and very clear, and they're going to reflect the light, but they are in centimeters. You just don't seem to be able to find centimeter rulers in the local stores. So I bought these on Amazon, and I got a 30 centimeter square and a 60 centimeter by I think 15 centimeter one. They were so cheap. I'm so used to seeing massive prices on the quilting rulers. They can vary from $50 to $80, it seems. These were only about $15 from Amazon. And the reason I wanted centimeter rulers is that I watch a lot of sewing tutorials. I don't know about you, but that's just one of my happy places, just watching YouTube, looking at bag sewing tutorials, anything that's fun, colourful and quick to make. I can just watch video after video some nights. So a lot of these videos are by people who use centimeters, and rather than try and fiddle with centimeters to inch conversions, which is not very accurate, decided it was time I had centimeter rulers, and that way I can just make them using their instructions without having to convert to imperial. So I'm happy with those. Haven't used them yet. They're brand new, never seen a rotary cutter yet. But the next time I make a bag, I'll definitely use one. Another fun little acquisition this week. What do they call it? Sex Stash Enhancement Expedition. Okay, I had some sex today. I enhanced my stash by a very little bit. My local yarn shop is having a pre-inventory sale. She had 25% off everything because she wanted to shift some stock before she had to count it, which I can definitely appreciate, having just gone through inventory at my place of work. And sometimes the prices make me a little bit scared because I'm not used to buying yarn, a lot of yarn at the local yarn shop. I tend to go for mail order yarn or McCall's yarn. And so the prices on her yarn is sometimes a little bit of a surprise, but I decided it was time to treat myself. I don't know about you, but if ever I'm under stress or going through a rough patch for any reason, I feel like I deserve a little treat. I don't always give in to it, but today I bought chocolate and yarn. The chocolate is really good. I think it's called the Seattle Chocolate Company or something. And I found it at a local little store which sells European imported goods. And it's really good. One was espresso flavor and the other one is Christmas spiced nuts or something like that. Very, very yummy. I won't be eating that all to myself. As soon as my husband came home from work, he saw it and he was already helping himself. So I have to share really, because if I eat it all to myself, I'm going to regret it later. So the yarn I bought is not one I have ever heard of before. I got colourful ones, of course, because I love colour. It did come in a lot of neutral colours as well. But these ones call to me. It's Jody Long Coastline. Now I wrote the fibre content down in my notebook because the label writing I can barely read, even with my reading glasses on. So it's 33% cotton, 28% viscose, 27% nylon, and 12% linen. It's got that nice look to it that's not a solid color, but sort of a soft color. And this one is a pinky color that is, okay, we're going to have to resort to the reading glasses now. These are the boring reading glasses. I had much sexier ones before, but they broke. I'm going to have to get some more. Okay, this one is Beach Hut. This one is Sandcastle. And this one is Waves. Definite beach theme there. And when I was paying for these, I decided that this is going to be my August knitting. I'm going to come up with a fun project, maybe a shawl, that I can make with these three colours in August when I've finished at the store. I have the whole month to enjoy the beach and enjoy my beach knitting. So if anyone's got any great suggestions on a shawl pattern that uses three colours, please leave it in the comments. I just realized that in my intro, I completely forgot to thank everyone who has liked, subscribed and shared my videos. Ali at the Little Drops of Wonderful mentioned me at the end of her last podcast. Thanks, Ali. I love you. And also other people have been sharing it in Discord groups and other places, and I really, really appreciate it. I was only going for a month and I had something like 255 subscribers, and I just couldn't believe it. It was just amazing to me. Last time I was showing you the things that I have made: the white linen top, the harem pants with that lovely black and white print, and the crazy flowered overalls. And I decided that you couldn't really appreciate them. I'm holding them up to the camera and you can only see a bit of it at a time. So what I did is I got my husband to film me a little bit out in the garden and doing a twirl. And I'm going to play that next so that you can get a better idea. It's really short. I'll just insert that here. As for knitting, not great progress there. I've got a film to show you of when I was faffing about with the Sporto sweater that I'm making out of Scheepjes Truly Scrumptious Aran. And I was knitting the pocket at the time, and I'll play that in a second, but I was waffling on about how it was going. And you know what? In the end, I took the pocket right off. I wasn't happy with it. I tried the sweater on with the pocket pinned at the top, so it was all done except for attaching that top part to the sweater. I didn't like it. It's a fairly close fitting body on me, and having that pocket on there just kind of added bulk where I didn't need bulk, if you know what I mean. And I just didn't like it, so I took it off. And I've put the needles into one of the sleeves and knitted a row or two on the sleeve. Not worth showing you that update on the sweater because you won't see much difference, but I'll play that film now of the footage I took about the sweater a few days ago. And I mentioned in there, I think I mentioned in there about the baby cardigan I was knitting. I found a great little baby cardigan by Yarnspirations called the Fuss Free Baby Cardigan, and I started to make that, and I didn't like the color combination I was using. I started in a green and then I put a yellow stripe in it. I got a fairly good way through the yoke, and I'm looking at the color combination thinking it just looks like barf. I'm going to rip it out. So if I start that again, I'll use maybe dark blue with a bit of yellow or something else anyway that just doesn't look awful. The plan is to give it to my niece who's expecting, and there was supposed to be a big gender reveal this week, but my sister has told me nothing. But either way, whatever gender the baby turns out to be, I don't think it'll look good in a green and yellow cardigan. I haven't picked up this sweater the last few days. It's been really hot in the house, and I just couldn't face having this pile of warm yarn in my lap. I have been knitting on a little project, a small baby cardigan with some cotton yarn, but I'm not loving it. I don't like the colours I've chosen. So you may never get to see that because I may frog it. We shall see. Now I just have to figure out where the heck I left off on this last time. My kangaroo pocket is in progress. So I'm to here, and I need to go about half the width at the top of the pocket. Anyhow, where was I? I'm on a purl row, wrong side row. Flip one, knit one, SSK. Hold the last 4 stitches. Knit 2 together, knit 2. So one of the things I've noticed when I'm knitting flat I do my knits and purls at a different gauge. I knit continental and my purls are looser than my knits, which I've learned from spending many happy hours on Ravelry, that's quite common. I knit much more evenly and tighter than I purl. I'm self-taught on the continental. I used to throw English because that's the way I learnt when I was 7. And then one year my in-laws came over to Canada to visit us on holiday, and my mother-in-law says, "You knit funny." And the reason was, of course, that she was Swiss and knitted the European way or the continental way. And so she gave me a very quick demonstration of how she knitted. And I thought, well, I can do that. So not long after, I switched to continental and I haven't looked back. However, with that baby cardigan, I did start knitting with the yarn in my left hand and purling back with the yarn in my right, because that tightened up my purls, and so I didn't get the rowing out. When you look at the back and you see pairs of ridges on the back, that's rowing out if there's a bigger gap every second row. And that means that one of your stitches is looser than the other. So I did avoid that. My stitching is looking beautiful on that cardigan, but I think I'm still going to pull it out. SSKs are always clumsy. This ring that I'm wearing is from Crit Success. I bought it years ago. It's actually for people who play things like Dungeons and Dragons. I have never played that game, so I have no idea how that works. But it makes a fantastic row counter ring. Every time you finish a row, you just slide it around so it counts up to 99. And it's pretty. It's got that lovely rainbow look to it. Of course, my favourite old-fashioned way of counting rows is usually to put marks on a piece of paper. This is why any pattern that I print out ends up being covered in pencil or pen marks. So this was a good idea. Coming down to my sewing room, because it's so much cooler down here, I can put my sweater on the table instead of in my lap. Whoops, went too far. And not get overheated. This is going to be a bit bulgy. I was just looking at this pocket thinking, it's going to be awfully small. How am I going to get my hands in there? And then I realized that once you've done the decreasing up here, you start to work straight for a couple of inches. I love the way my Caspian needles match my yarn. So I think I'm ready to bind off now. It's pulling quite a bit at the side where I joined as I knitted up the sides. And it's kind of bulgy because my purl stitches are looser than my knits, and of course the background fabric is all knit because it was in the round. However, I am going to bind off this piece, do a temporary attachment, and then try it on. Another thing I made this week is a really small item. It's a needle book. I saw a couple of YouTube videos of people who've made really cute ones, and they put a lot of work into it, and it gave me some inspiration for how to make my own. I didn't actually follow anyone's instructions to make mine. I just took some inspiration from other people's and then did it without a plan. And I used a gorgeous sewing themed tapestry type upholstery fabric for it. So I've made some footage of that because I knew that I'd have given it away by the time I did this vlog. So I filmed myself making it, and you'll see the finished result on the next clip. So it's not going to be a very big needle book. I think this would be awesome as the front of it. So all I need to do is cut out enough to make back and front, and then I can use some fabric as a lining, and I have some felt that I can use for the pages inside. I'm just winging this, you know me and my slapdashery. My blade probably needs replacing. Okay, cross fingers. Yeah, I think that'll be nice. All right, now I need to get my lining fabric. I'm not going to add any batting or interfacing. These fabrics are pretty thick. I don't think they'll need it. Okay, and this is the one piece of felt that I could find hanging around in my sewing room. It's left over from making gnomes. So I searched through my gnome making bag because I went through a bit of a craze of that the last couple of years. I probably bought this to make gnome noses or something. So I'm going to use this as the center part for the needles to be pinned into. It's not going to be very big. Okay, so basically I'm making this up as I go along. The plan is to put these right sides together and sew them and leave a gap, turn them out. Then I'll have to think about incorporating a pocket at the same time. So let me just think about this. Okay, so pocket and front. Let's do a little bit of clippy clippy. Oh, this is a good opportunity for me to show you this. I don't know if you've been sold on the idea of these little quilting clips instead of pins. I love them. I don't use them all the time. Sometimes there are places when I want to use pins. But these clips are great, especially when you're sewing with vinyl or something that can't be pinned. They are great. And so once I was watching one of Lizzie Curtis's videos and I saw her idea for a clip holder, and this, okay, not this one exactly, but hers is called Finch. So you want to go to Lizzie Curtis on YouTube, this is called the Finch bag, and she made it with these little flappy bits to hold the clips. So I didn't follow her tutorial per se, but I got the idea from her. I made 4 rows for my quilt clips to stick onto, and I put a snap, so it's a bag with that on the outside, and I put a snap, and inside I have bigger clips. I hardly ever use the bigger clips. I find them a little too clunky, but I have them in case I need them. They're actually not bad for knitwear or crochet to hold that together, but the little ones are perfect for fabric. So I will use some of these now because this is going to be handy. I just had to edit a bit out because I got a thread nest. Kate from the Last Homely House, whom I love by the way, got to go over there and watch her channel. She's amazing. She uses what she calls thread bunnies, and I've been doing this for years. This is great when you quilt or sew really any seam. Use a little piece of scrap fabric, you sew across it before you sew your seam, and then you sew onto your main piece, and it's a nice smooth transition. Why didn't I do that before, you may ask? I don't know. I could have sewn onto the thread bunny at the end there as well. Front fabric. No. So it's not bad, but there is a little bit of a bulge where I had my turning gap right there, and it's bugging me. It's the seam allowance, and it's just sticking out a little bit too much. I already had to redo that before because it was trying to escape away from me. So I'm going to unpick that teeny bit again. Maybe snip the fabric. Whoopsie. You know, the good thing about being someone who talks to themselves a lot is if my family goes past my sewing room door and hears me talking to you guys, they'll think I'm just talking to myself again. All right. Last step. It's finished. I don't know whether you've seen the 2-minute video I did a week or two ago. It was just a really quick video of how I made a baby bandana. Well, I think when I printed out the baby bib pattern, it came out too small and there was nothing to check it with. So this is the pattern for the baby bandana bib, and it's by Project Nursery, and I'll see if I can find that link again to put it underneath. But when I made the first one, it came out super tiny. So this is what the first one came out like. When I do it up, it has a snap at the back, it's minute. So I made a different one last night. I took it back to the photocopier and I enlarged it by 125%, and then I made the second one, which I think looks a bit more realistic. I'm not really sure how big a baby's neck is anymore. It's been a long time since my babies were babies. But this to me looks like it's much more likely to fit an actual real live baby and not either a chihuahua or a doll. I'm thinking of finding someone with a chihuahua who might like the first one. Actually, one of my friends has two. Maybe she'd like it. There you go. So that one will not be wasted. It'll have a home somewhere. One of the things I've really wanted to make recently is a replacement apron for one of my favorite aprons. I have a huge one that my sister bought me, and I think it probably was in 2012. I went over to the island of my birth in 2012 for a sad reason. Unfortunately, my dad was sick and I went for 7 weeks. I wasn't working at the time, and I went for 7 weeks so I could spend some time staying with my mum and dad and get some quality time in before it was too late. And I went in the spring and he did actually die in the fall. So I'm glad I went. I'm really, really glad I went. And while we were there, my sister and I visited this cool gallery, and it's a place where a lot of artists and artisans were taking their product and selling them in a central spot. And so it was full of really, really lovely stuff. And one of the things they had was this person who was sewing aprons and tea towels and all sorts of related things. Now I'm almost embarrassed to show you the state of this now because it's 11 years old and it's not very clean looking anymore, and it's patched right here. There's a hole behind that. But I just love this apron so much. It's got a beach hut on the front. It's fun coloured stripes. It's got a big pocket. It's got maximum coverage. This is what I need when I'm in the kitchen. I used it as a pattern. I bought some unbleached canvas from work the other day, and I just folded this in half, laid it on the fold, cut around it with some seam allowance, and I sewed an apron. And then, after I had sewn the apron, I tossed it in the machine for a really quick wash, just to take out any sizing, and I dyed it. This is the first dyeing I've done in a really long time. Before COVID, I had a little play with dyeing yarn with Procyon MX dye. I think that's what it's called. Alkaline dye. Anyway, you soak the yarn in soda ash solution or lye, and then you use an alkaline dye to dye it. And this was dyed with Rit dye though. I just bought a bottle of indigo Rit dye, and I mixed it up with the salt and the hot water. I took it outside so that I wasn't going to throw a bunch of blue water all over my house, and an old bowl, and I submersed it completely, and then just after a couple of minutes I took the top part out and pegged it to something, and then I left it about halfway in so it was a little bit darker in the middle. And then I left it in the dye at the bottom for the longest time. In fact, probably too long, because there's quite a hard line there. So I think the dip dyeing would probably look better if it was a bit more gradual. But hey, it's the first time I've done it, and I really like the colour. So that's going to be my new kitchen apron. I may end up appliquing something fun on it. I have some beautiful sea creature quilt cotton that I might end up adding to this. That was kind of the plan when I dyed it blue. We shall see. I think anything that makes it less obvious when I splash food all over it is a good thing. And it's nice and tough. It should last many years, and I will enjoy using it. I impressed myself I even remembered to use cotton thread so that the thread would dye as well. So yeah, that was a good thing, because if I'd used polyester thread, I probably would have ended up with blue fabric and cream thread. So that wouldn't have been great, would it? And while I had that blue dye bath sitting there on the back path behind my house, I thought, don't really want to throw that dye away and not use it for something else. So I ran in here and I grabbed 4 balls of Drops Paris, which is a white cotton yarn. It's just up there on my shelf. And I bought it, again, pre-COVID, just to experiment with dyeing. And I did a very slapdash method of skeins it, but since I dip dyed these, I have actually put more skein ties on. So the tops of them were just dipped really briefly. They're actually showing more turquoise on the screen than they are in real life. They look quite light blue to me. And then I left the middle bit in a little longer and the bottoms in a little longer. So they go from a light blue to a medium blue. They're still feeling a little damp. That was 24 hours ago and they're still feeling a tiny bit damp. But what I'll do is I'll grab my little yarn winder later and I'll put them into cakes. I'm really pleased with those. Not sure what I'm going to make with them. This cotton is, I don't know if you've ever used Drops before, but this one is kind of rough feeling. It's not a Pima cotton, it's not a luxury cotton, it's pretty basic. Utilitarian, maybe that's the word. But hey, I had fun doing that, and I will make them into something at some point. To end with, I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's watched today, and I'm so glad you're here. I really appreciate the comments and the likes and the subscribes and the shares. It really helps get my channel noticed. I mean, I'm having fun either way. Believe me, this is a lot of fun. I'm really, really enjoying doing this. But it's nice to know that I'm not talking to myself, you know? I do talk to myself all the time, but still, sometimes it can feel a little weird. Before you click away, I am just going to add a teeny bit of film of my garden the other day. We've had a few visitors in the garden lately. Unfortunately, these deer do like to eat things that we would rather be eating. We've lost some tomato plants and some bean plants, and they'll eat just about anything. I think the only thing that I can guarantee would be safe is potatoes. We had a vegetable patch full of potatoes one year, and we watched the deer walk through it and sniff at it and walk away. So I think that's probably the only thing that is completely safe, until they're hungry enough, I suppose, to actually eat those as well. So we've put netting over that, somewhat belatedly now. But there seems to be a favourite little spot for the deer to sit. As I look down my garden, there's a very, very large walnut tree. I think it's probably about 60 feet tall at least now. And in front of that is a smaller apricot tree. And in front of that, we seem to have a constant patch of flattened grass where the deer seem to love to lie. I don't know what's special about that particular patch, but they really like it there. So frequently we'll look out in the evening or the morning and we'll find a deer just sitting there chilling. Maybe they feel safe. We don't have any dogs. We're not going to do them any harm. We're happy to see them. I think that's all for today. Enjoy the view of the deer, and I will be looking forward to talking to you again very soon. Bye.